Hello and welcome to this episode of Paula's Run Club with me, Paula Radcliffe.
And me, Christopher Thompson.
And fresh off the back of the Kielder Trail weekend, we're embracing something a little bit different, a little bit inspirational for everybody. It's still, of course, running. We have the phenomenal guest of Holly Wootten, who won the women's category but finished second overall in the amazing Dragon's Back Challenge recently in Snowdonia. So, Tomo, what have we been up to this week? Well, as I said, I have fought my way back. Well, actually, the hardest bit was getting to Kielder. For the races at the weekend. It was the Kielder Marathon and Trail weekend up there. Of course, Storm Amy hit with a little bit of a vengeance on Friday night, well, through Friday in the day, I think, and through the night. Friday night, which did mean that they had some trees down. It's in the middle of a national forest around Kielder Reservoir, so that impacted the event. They had to postpone the 10K and move that to Sunday, which meant they had a lot more runners coming in, but beautiful day on Sunday. It was windy, which did make it very, very tough, and we were glad to get in amongst the trees and shelter from that wind, but we had beautiful sunshine, stunning scenery. Have you been to Kielder?
Yeah, briefly I went up with the family and I ran half marathon, so that's it's a little under halfway, I think. What is it? A lap is a mile, is a marathon, right? Is that my memory's going a bit with it?
Yeah, well, I did the half. I ended up doing the half because my calf was not in the right shape to be able to survive round a marathon, and I knew it could survive the half marathon. So I did the half, and it actually starts. You stay on one side, really. You cross over the lake,
Yes.
do a little loop and come back. And then you run the back end of the marathon. But you're right, the marathon does go right round.
Yeah, because they dropped me, or Steve and Al dropped me at the car park, and then I just ran continuous round. They picked me up halfway round, roughly, I think, where you stayed in the cabins. But yeah,
Yes.
as you say, absolutely stunning, and not a part of the world I've been to before going up there. But what were the numbers like? How many people ran?
They should have had 900 in the 10K. I think they still had upwards of 700 came back the next day to do it, which was phenomenal. I think they had about the same number in the marathon, and then 1,200 or so in the half.
So what would you say? So people listening that don't know much about necessarily Kielder or the races, sell it in a sentence for us? How would you get people inspired to want to go and do that?
I think it's a phenomenal introduction to trail running, and we're going to hear from Holly about the kind of the other end of the scale, the really extreme, difficult, tough, challenging trail races. I think for me, Kielder's a perfect introduction because it is tough, it's rolling, but it's beautiful forest trails. Anybody who's struggling with a little bit of a niggle, an injury, they're beautifully soft, like pine needle trails almost. And so that bit's really good. Yes, the hills are tough. The scenery motivates you. And there is something that really draws it together about the people having made that journey out to the reservoir. Everyone's hanging around. It's a little bit like, because of the delays, because of the storm, because of the hangovers from the day before, people weren't there, so Grammy just delayed the start. It's just like, okay, nobody minded hanging around for another 25 minutes at the start just to make sure that everybody arrived in time to take part in those races. So I think it's a great friendly way to do it, and that really came across. And for me, it was really cool to be able to do an event that I've promised to do for a long time. I've kind of known Steve and Alison since before they started organising this, seen this event grow and been promising I would do it for a long time. Was gutted not to be able to get through the marathon, and absolutely it's inspired me to want to go back and do the marathon next time. But I loved doing the half. Once I got off the first bit on the dam, which was exposed in the wind and a little bit of tarmac, which my calf wasn't liking, then I was really enjoying it. And the fun bit was they gave me updates as well. So Raf was running in the 10K. He was kind of trying to hang on to Laura Muir, was his way going into the event. And when I came off the dam at about 5K, the tannoy shouted out to me how he'd done, and he'd actually finished 5th overall, and he ran 36:40 and won the junior category. So he'd done really well. So that gave me a little bit of a boost as well. It was kind of that kind of family atmosphere, which I enjoyed.
That's nice. I definitely think you've definitely got me wanting to go next year and bring everyone up to do it. But I'm conscious of taking up too much of this intro time. Before we move on, in the news, your first love in cross country might be going. It's being talked again about going into the Winter Olympics. Like, you're a big advocate for cross country running in general. Would you like to see it in the Winter Olympics?
I think I would love to see it there. I'd love to see anything, to be honest, that puts cross country back at the level that it should be. Because for me, I mean, even everything that we've just talked about with Kielder, that kind of brings back to the same thing. Cross country is the great introduction for anything that's endurance based in the sport, I think. It really teaches you how to know your body. I mean, we've talked about the things that you need to know moving towards the marathon. For me, that cross country groundwork was really vital for me come the marathon, because in cross country, times mean nothing. It's all about what you've got in your body, what your body's capable of doing, how well you're suited to the course, and how well you run to your strengths on that course. And so that's why I think it's a really strong way to bring everybody together. And it's very best. I'm thinking back to the best world cross countries. Looking back over the years, they bring together your top 1500 meter runners right up to your marathon runners, and it's kind of that common ground in the middle where you're really racing over that cross country distance. So I would love to see it come into the Winter Olympics. I think it does fit into the Winter Olympics. It's not a summer sport for that reason, that there are specialists from 1500 meters, steeplechase, 5000, 10,000. They're all doing different events on the track. And in the winter, they can kind of come together in that cross-country distance. So,
well, it's run in the winter for a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
But it would be good. I think the only thing I would add as well, from a spectator point of view, is the number of times you watch a cross country and it's never over till it's over. And that's what I love about it. On the track, you can kind of, it's almost like a whittling down until the sprint finish, and the narrative kind of lays out in front of you. Whereas with cross country, you could have a 100-meter lead going into the last 800 and it not be enough. I mean, we've seen so many world cross country races where exactly the one in Denmark, I remember thinking with that famous sprint finish at the end and the athlete just got pipped. It's just, you think you're away. My brain's Giddy, I think it was, wasn't it? She had a big lead. Gidey, sorry. So yeah, no, I would love to see it from a spectator point of view, just that. And also, I totally agree with you. You learn a lot about yourself and how to manage effort through cross country. But yeah, absolutely agree, and it would be good if Seb can get that over the line. Come on, Seb, do it. Do you know what? Let's get him on, and then let's
that one is coming as well. So we'll put some votes in to push that one forward as well. The argument they make is that it has to be on snow or ice. That's great. We can race cross country on snow.
Listen, I ran my first few races, big races, were on snow. I mean, we won't talk about what happened to me in those conditions. I'll talk about off air because it was a little bit. Yeah, there was an incident, but anyway, that's for another time. But yeah, there's loads of iconic cross country pictures of athletes running in snow. I
don't know about you as well, but it's one of the things I love is when there's fresh snowfall, being the first person to get out there and make the tracks through the snow.
Oh yeah.
I love that. As a kid, I just really remember being able to do that and following the tracks of kind of other people, or make your own. People follow behind you, see where you go. We could mix that with lots of things. I think there's some ideas coming there.
I think so. I know what you mean by that first. There's something about that first footstep, and then once it's spoiled, it's almost like then you just go free for all and just make
I mean, slushy muddy snow nobody likes to run in. That's just messy, cold and miserable. But fresh pure snow is beautiful to run in. It's inspiring. Yes, it's cold, but it's very motivating to run in. So yeah, it's one of my favourite things to do is run in fresh snow. Right,
before we get told off by Sharky, let's get on with it. 7 minutes, we've done 10. Let's go.
Right. Without further ado, we're going to introduce the interview this week with Holly Wootten. We talked about that famous Dragon's Back race, which I've done some reading up on. It's phenomenal, isn't it? It's basically 6-day race through Snowdonia, a lot of climbing, a lot of managing, and they really interesting. I mean, we'll let her talk about it, but the way you have to plan A to B yourself and pick the quickest route and the best route. So without further ado, let's hear from Holly Wootten, who did finish second behind only one male, David Parrish, in that recent Dragon's Back race. Okay, so fresh from the wonderful experience I had at the Ultra Kilda Marathon weekend last weekend, I am honoured to welcome our guest for this week in Holly Wootten, ultra runner. Many of you, if you haven't heard about Holly, actually go and Google the Dragon's Back event 2025, because she ended up winning the women's division by pretty much 11 hours ahead of the next female, but very nearly won overall. Only one man managed to beat her, David Parris, so she finished second overall in that 6-day challenge. But I'm going to let you, Holly, please explain to us what the Dragon's Back event is and what that entails.
So Dragon's Back it's a race over 6 days. It goes from top to bottom of Wales, so from Conway Castle in the north all the way down to Cardiff. It's 380 kilometres there or thereabouts, and about 17,000 metres of climbing. And it chops itself up. So yeah, 6 days. Each day is a stage, so you run from camp to camp. So it's a little bit different to people that might have heard of like the Spine Race, which is sort of a very long distance race over multiple days, but you do it in one push and you can kind of decide where you want to sleep. This is each day. Course opens at 6 in the morning, closes at 10 p.m. at night. So that's the time window that you have. You can decide when you want to start, but you need to make sure that you hit all the cut-offs and get in before 10 at night. And your time starts when you cross the start line each day and when you cross the finish line each day it finishes. So it's a pretty brutal race. Every day is a little bit different. So you start up in a pretty rocky section of hitting Snowdonia towards the end of day one. So day one is actually the shortest day lengthwise, not necessarily the shortest day in terms of time, because you're doing about 50k, but you've got 4,000 meters of climbing in that, as opposed to, say, the last day, which is about 65k, but only 1,000 meters of climbing, because you're running into Cardiff, you're running into a town. So it's very varied in terms of sort of the makeup of each day, what's underfoot each day, the fact that you're getting more and more tired through the week, and you're traversing the length of a country. So it's a pretty cool race.
And you have to carry all of your provisions with you, or you can pick those up each night?
So the way that it works is you have like a 15 kilogram camp bag, and then you have like a little like 2.5 kilo drop bag for each day. So at the very start, so you get there on the Sunday, the race starts on the Monday morning. You get there on the Sunday and you have this nerve-wracking bit of you get your bag weighed. And that is it. So you don't have to carry food with you for the evenings or while you're in camp or anything like that, but you do have to have all of your hill food for the day. So you can imagine gels are pretty heavy and it racks up quite a lot. And so when you've got like each day, so say for me, my days were sort of between like around like 8 and 9 hours each day. So a lot of gels. And then you get some people that are out for sort of the full length of each day. They're out like 14, 15, 16 hours each day. There's a lot of food that they have to have while they're out on the hill. Because the only restocking that you can do through the week is there's a couple of points where you can go into like a supermarket that you might run past. But then you have to carry everything with you that you take out of there to get either to camp or the next support point. But all of the food in camp is incredible. We don't have to set up our own tents or anything like that. The logistical side of the race is truly incredible. So in that window that you've got people leaving camp, so I left most days almost last, so I'd be leaving around like 8:30, sort of going towards 9 o'clock. So after that point they collapsed everything in camp, so that's every participant's tent, which are like 8-person tents. Then they've got the big mess tent, they collapse that, the kitchen tent, all of the other the medical tent, all of it. Get that all down, pack that all up, pop it in all of the trucks and whatnot, get to the next camp, build it all before the first people arrive sort of early afternoon. Because when the first people get there, the worst thing that you'd have, particularly with the weather we had this year, you're soaking wet. The last thing you want is to get to your tent and find it's not built, or that the chips aren't ready that are normally there. So logistically, it's an incredible operation that they do, and we're really well looked after.
And you talked us through the fact that you would actually leave later. I know that there are tactical mind games even, but there is planning that goes into that as determining maybe when's the best time to run for you, how fast you're going to cover it that day. Can you talk us through some of this? Because I found that fascinating when you talked the other night about the psychology behind it.
So there's a number of bits that play with it. So you get in part, if you come in a certain time, you'll be told, oh, you have to start after X time in the morning, because otherwise you'd be getting to the next camp before they've set it up.
Okay.
But you still have a window that you can play with, and I quite like starting a little bit later anyway, because then I get a little bit more time in the morning. I can like wake up a little bit more gently. I can get all my food in me. I can take a little bit more time, as opposed to the people that are fighting the cutoffs, want to get out at 6 a.m. They're waking up at like 4:30, having their food at 5, like in the dark, doing all of their admin in the dark and getting out. I'm like, oh, I can sort of leisurely wake up at like 6 and get my food down and then kind of plan out what I'm going to do. And to the tactical point, there were a number of us that were running around about the same pace. So after day one, top four, we were 7 minutes apart from each other, which after sort of 50K, that's quite close. So we all had this bit of like, oh, okay, are people going to run with each other? Are people going to sort of like play around with things? Three of the guys decided that they were going to run with each other. So Ed, Danny, and Peter, they decided they were going to run with each other because Danny knew where he was going, and Ed and Peter were the stronger runners. So they were going to pull Danny through, but Danny was going to be able to direct them. Because part of this whole race is you have to hit certain checkpoints. There are a few sections of mandatory sort of route where you go over like private land, or there's a road or something like that. But the rest of it is just open, so you can take your own route that you want to. So I did a lot of work on kind of making sure that I knew the route really well, and that I knew a few of the better lines to take to reduce my amount of time, my amount of effort that I was going to be expending. And I really didn't want that lot to be jumping on my bandwagon of where I knew that I was going, particularly when I realised that some of them didn't know where they were going so well. So like, Dave had recce'd day one, but he hadn't recce'd any of the other days at all. So what Paul is getting to is so the start of day two, the three guys had decided they were going off together, fine. The previous night, Dave had told me that he was going to go off with them. So I was expecting to be like, oh, okay, I'll just set off after all of them. I'll be able to run my own race. It will be all good. Went to go and get my bag checked, because you have kit check every single day. So I went to go do that. Looked at the start pen, and David was just standing there waiting for me to head off. His plan, as it turned out, was he was wanting to have me a bit ahead so that he could spot where I was. So he knew roughly whether he was taking the right lines or not. But so I kind of was like, oh, my whole plan has been scuppered, because I was just wanting to have quite a leisurely day of just like going out and taking my own lines and not having to worry about any of this sort of toing and froing. But the moment I saw that he'd gone, I ran over to the guys at the start pen and was like, oh, is he set off? They're like, no, he's just nipped to the loo. I was like, right, I'm going. Don't tell him that I've gone. Let him work it out, and I'll see if I can get ahead enough and hide. So it's really good fun. There's a lot of little like things that you can play around with each other with it. And you can really get into other people's heads. If they know that you know exactly where you're going, then they know that there are certain bits where you're going to make up time and they're not going to know how you've made it up. And you might just pop out from anywhere and they'll be like, oh, all the hard work that they've done pushing harder, running faster and everything is all for naught because you've just popped out. You know, run less distance and here I am.
Because it's putting your brain to work on it. And I think for a lot of the people who'll be listening to the podcast, they'll be used to doing planned races where there's a course and that's the course. And there is no option with that. You basically just follow the blue line if it's there, but you follow the way that the course is marked out. This is something very different because you're actually you just have to get from A to B and you can choose your own route. And I think that's really, really fascinating, a whole different dimension that maybe a lot of people haven't thought about. I know you also talked about other factors that play into it, like how well you plan your recovery, your refueling. It becomes, I imagine, a lot more important than even in a regular ultra race to make sure that you fuel and recover.
Massively so. So, I mean, you know that you're going to get really tired throughout the week. So, you know that your brain is going to start slowing down. You're going to make fewer and fewer good decisions. So you try at the start, like before you've even got to Wales, to do as much admin as you possibly can. so that you can almost just switch off while you're there and just go through the motions. So I had each of the days were put in within my big bag. Each of the days were put into little bags, and then each of the bits within the days were then in smaller bags within that. So I had like the socks, the buffs that I was going to wear, and the sports bras that I was going to wear for each day in this bag, alongside the food that was going to go into my pack at the start of the day, and then the food that was going to go into my drop bag that day, and then anything that I was going to be having at camp that day as well. So I'd have a little bit of extra stuff in the morning other than just the food that they provide. And then I'd also have a set of things that as soon as I got into camp, I would get into my tent and I'd start eating straight away, because the sooner you can start eating, the sooner you can start recovering, the better for the next day. And invariably, when you get in, you're not going to want to go straight into the mess tent. You're going to want to do things like take off your socks, sort out your feet, and all of that sort of stuff. So I made sure that I always had like little bits of food that I could be just munching on straight away from my bag. But yeah, that's all admin that you want to do ahead of time, because whilst when you're running quicker, you do have more time in camp, the more you can use that time, the better. So it's almost like the race doesn't end when you cross the line into camp each day. You then have the recovery race as well. So how much food can you get down yourself? How much horizontal time can you have? Like all the time off of your feet. If you've got any issues, can you get into the medical tent and get them sorted and everything without impacting sort of your eating patterns, sleeping patterns, all of that sort of stuff? And if you can do it really efficiently, then you're just going to recover better overall.
And so route-wise, sorry, I'm going to bring you in, Tomo, here, but do you memorize it? Or do you run with the map? Because I'm just thinking, like, we would be used to, say, going out for a run in a new place, and everybody's a little bit different. I don't know what you do here, Tomo, but I basically I don't like to run with my phone or run with a map. So I'll try and memorize the route that I'm taking if I'm in a new place, so it's not to get lost. But this is on a much, much bigger scale and a much more crucial scale as well. So are you able to run with a map, or do you just memorize it all?
Yeah, so you've got the map. I wonder if I've got one to hand. It's like massive, massive map. So you've got all the days are on there. You fold it all up as you're going along. And it's like really good, really detailed and everything. When I was doing my recce runs, I would run with map in hand, like folded onto the section of it that I was on, and kind of run along and get a feel for what I was doing. Then I did have the route on my watch, but so on my what, because you can follow GPX files that the race provides. Those ones are the way that it's described by Shane, the race director, is that they follow the most obvious route. So it's not the most direct route or anything like that. It's just the one where if you were looking around, then there's the clearest path that's there. It's going to follow that. So the routes I had that I would sort of load up on my watch and switch between, a lot of them were from recce runs that I'd done, where it was like, okay, well, I know that this is the route that I want to be taking, not that one. And so I kind of flipped between the official route and those. But yeah, I didn't have my map in hand during the race. I did the race in 2023 as like a recce for doing it this year. So then I did run with map in hand, because I hadn't recce'd the route at all, because I was treating doing the race as a recce in itself.
I feel like there's a reality TV idea coming here. Do you not think, Tomo? We just do Run Club does a route, and we'll just say you've got to get from here to here, and you do it however you want. Let's put teams out there.
Do you know what? Genuinely, as a kid, so I grew up in Aldershot, and a lot of any people that went to Aldershot Farnham and District as a kid back in my day, we used to do this thing where on a long run we didn't enjoy just going out for long mundane runs on a Sunday. So we'd go around the corner so our coach couldn't see us, and we'd all get into groups, and then we'd say a point, and then in our groups we'd have to try and get to that point in the quickest way, because we kind of knew the area pretty well. So it was only like 20 minutes, half an hour, but it was that kind of concept, the excitement of, right, we've got to get to there, how are we going to do it? So you're right, yeah, let's do it, Paula, because I loved that. When I was a kid, that was one of the fun things we used to do growing up.
Well, so you should come up to the lakes, because like most of the races that are up here, so fell racing, so you can't have GPX, so you can't have a map up on your phone or anything like that. You have a map. There are set points that you've got to go to. There are well-established routes, because some of the fell races have been going for a really long time. But at the crux of it, like it is just a going right, go to that point, go to that point, go to that point,
Mm.
however you want to. Get back here really quickly. Actually, a lot of it got born out of shepherds trying to work out who they were wanting to hire. And so they just have all
Okay.
the lads and just go, right, all of you, first one to the top of there and back down. But there wouldn't be a particular way of going up or way of going down. So you get some of the races around here can be quite interesting because you'll have people coming sort of from all directions towards a point because you might have some people that know the route better. You might have some people that are like, oh, I'm less comfortable running on that type of terrain, so I'm going to take a slightly longer route, but run on something that I'm more comfortable with. So it can be complete and utter mayhem, but it's brilliant fun. So it was like doing a full race, but on a much, much bigger scale.
We talk about the fact in marathon running, there is a huge camaraderie. There's also a lot of respect because the distance is tough. This is far tougher than that. So I'm sure there's a huge amount of respect amongst the competitors in terms of, yes, you want to beat each other, but you also respect that you're all out there trying to survive it.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a case where it's like everyone competing against the course. And there is that bit of so you stay on the dragon and you're a dragon slayer if you manage to complete it. And the nice thing is that if you miss the cutoffs or if you have an injury or what have you, that means that you can't complete a full day, you can drop down to the hatchling, which are half days. So those people still make their way down all the way down to Cardiff, just doing sort of half days each day, which is nice because with a race where the finish percentage is less than 30, if you had everyone literally disappearing, you'd get to the last day and there'd be virtually no one there, which would be really tough. But I mean, I think compared to other races that I've done, the camaraderie element of it is huge, partially because of the way that the rolling start is done. So you've got the people that are going the slowest, so setting off earliest. So they're setting off at 6 and they're going to get in late. And then you've got the people that are going faster, they're setting off sort of later and later and later. And they arrive earlier than the people who are finishing. So you get the faster people see everyone, which is really nice. But then it also means that the slower people see everyone coming through each day. So you kind of get this sort of amalgamation of everyone coming through. You get certain points of the day which feel like almost like busy or what have you, because it's just how all the times are coinciding. But it means that you get the front runners a lot of the time in most races. You'll have it on the road, you'll have it on trail, that you set off and then you're really spread out and you don't see anyone. You get the same with the people at the back. In the middle, it kind of jostles around a little bit more. But with this, you get that whole thing of seeing people all throughout the day, both if you are at the front and if you are at the back, which is just brilliant.
One of the things, because you've kind of touched on it a little bit, is the unique thing about this race is you are almost, I assume, you're even sharing a tent. You're not just sharing a space between, like on a track, between rounds, they go off to their own federation, their own bedrooms, and they're kind of away, and you don't see that competitor again till you go out to the warm-up track or into the call room. But for you, you're sharing a journey, and no matter how far you are ahead, you all come back together to kind of almost mentally and physically reset. And I love the way you called it horizontal time, kind of the recovery race, and all these. I love all these buzzwords, but as far as you keeping that race brain on, like, how much is that kind of playing into that thing? Like, because are you actually sharing a tent with some of these guys, or are you just in a tent next to each other?
So you're in 8-person tents, and within the 8-person tent, there are 2-person pods. And you can specify a tent before the race and everything, like who you want to be in your tent if you know other people that are racing. So Jodie Gould, who was second lady, is actually a very good friend of mine. So we podded together in the tent, which was actually really very nice. And it was awesome seeing her race evolve through the week. But we then had this kind of shared space where we could take ourselves away from everything that was going on and kind of just like unload everything that was happening. And yeah, it was really nice being able to have that, because you do have to have your game face on like a lot of the time. Like, you're not hurting, don't tell anyone that you're hurting if you're racing them, or that you're struggling a bit to get your food down and all of that. So a lot of the time, like, I'd come in. I think everyone said through the week they were like, "You're so happy, like you seem so strong, like this, that, and the other." Like, I'm not. I'm just quite good at making it seem like I am. So
Mm.
I'd get into camp and like be sort of buzzing about getting in, be really happy. I'd then get to my tent. I'd be the first one back in my tent, and I'd just decompress. I'd basically just get in there, flop, and just sort of take a while sorting myself out before I could G myself up to then be like, right, I now need to look like I'm totally okay around the guys.
You
Apart
don't
from
do
them.
media interviews, do you, in between or anything like that? So
Yeah,
like
so we
you
we
do.
did actually. Well, on a couple of the days. So after day one, both David and I got like pulled to one side to just a dragon's back one. So ones that because they put out a little video every day. And then we didn't get individual interviews then until actually like after we'd finished. But each day, some people would get interviewed. But a lot of stuff was going on like out on socials all throughout the week, so you can kind of follow and you get like partway through and it'd be like, okay, well, so you kind of anytime you saw media, you needed to look like you were feeling pretty strong, because something would go out and you could easily find out who was looking a little bit weak or not. Um, and yeah, lots of people will come back and say, "Oh, I saw such and such person out on course," and like you can just hear people chatting around race because everyone starts to know who everyone is. Um, so yeah, there's a lot going on in terms of keeping up a bit of a front, or the race doesn't really take a proper break. You can hide yourself away for a little while, but not fully.
Mm.
And I'm curious because in a regular, so in a shorter race, even like a marathon, if you've been behind for a while and you catch someone up, we have this saying where you say, you just keep going past them. Don't hang on in that group, kind of just keep going because that psychologically is kind of a big boost to you and also shows them that you're moving much quicker than them. Presumably on a race like this where you're going to catch up again overnight, that's not really the way to tactically play it out. Or would it
Well,
be?
having said that, so because it was later on in the week, kind of decided that it was sort of the way to do it. With day four, so I was at this point, I think I was like 15 minutes behind third and about like 25 behind second, and then David was ahead of that, and so I'd set off half an hour after second had, or a little bit over half an hour after second had. So I knew if I caught second, I was in second at that point. I'd made up the time and some. And so when I did, I mean, I was feeling really good coming into the support point, which is roughly around halfway on day four. I'd had a really good morning. The support point itself was mad. The amount of support there was really great. It was absolutely buzzing. My dad was there as well, which was really nice. I came kind of charging in, um, got all myself spotted that the guys were there. So second and third place were there. So I knew I'd taken them. And at this point, Ed, who had been in second, he left the support point just as I got in. I was like, right, I'm going to do the quickest sort of pit stop I can, head out and just run with him and just try and like see if he sticks with me for a bit. But if he does, I'm going to break him. So we were heading out and running up a hill that ordinarily I would have walked. But I was like, no, can't show that I'm like tiring or anything like that. I need to show that I'm really strong, and I'm just going to at this point try and break the elastic, like get the time on him, and don't like try and make it so that it's more than just that 5 minutes that I've made up. I want to put time on, feel comfortable going into the next day. So was like running with him a bit. He was like, "Oh, is it okay if I stick with you for a while?" Like, yeah, sure. Makes it easier when you have two people running with each other anyway. But in my head, the whole time I was like, right, I'm just gonna like feel really strong, embody the strength, and just push on. And so yeah, I was running things that I otherwise wouldn't. But I was feeling good. I was fueling really well, and I was just waiting for the elastic to break. And thankfully, it did. Not after too long. But yeah, there's definitely that bit of if if you can just shoot by someone, particularly as they've known that I'd made up that much time on them in that morning point, if I could still look like I was strong, then they wouldn't think that I'd like burnt a match and I was maybe, tiring, and actually they'd be able to put time back on me later on in the day. I needed to break it, get ahead, keep ahead, and hide again, and then make it seem like, play in their minds of, gosh, maybe she's putting even more time on me because they couldn't see whether I was still pulling away or whether we were tracking at that point.
And do you
So
feel that there's a leveling of the kind of male female divide? There's the traditional males are stronger, they're quicker, but certainly over the ultra distance, and we get into distances like this, there is that leveling out because of just the women's, and no offense here, Tomo, but powers of endurance and concentration and multitasking and things like that. No, but seriously, it does feel like there's a leveling when you get to a certain distance. And I'd like you to talk us through how you progressed, how you got into these ultras, because presumably you started like everyone else with a 5 and 10K race and kind of gradually built up from there at some point. But at what point do you think it becomes level?
So bizarrely, the way that I started out with this was actually I moved to London with work, and around September time of, I think it was 2017, and I hadn't done any, because I'd done loads of like team sports and everything growing up, and I'd done a little bit throughout university, and then got into the working world. Didn't do anything for those couple of months leading up to Christmas. Went and back up to Worcester, saw my cousins, and they were like, "Oh, we've entered this thing. You'll really enjoy it. You should enter with us." Oh, okay, what is it? They're like, no, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. But the early bird price goes up tomorrow, so enter today. Enter today. It would be really good fun. It's in May time. You'll be fine. Like, okay, I'll do it. Fine. Yeah, let's go for it. So as it turned out, it was 3 marathons back to back over 3 days around the Devonshire coast. Um,
Wow.
so
You'll be
at this
fine.
point
You'll
in
be fine.
Yeah.
you'll be fine. So at this point in time, I had never done a trail race. I had only done a half marathon by accident when I got lost on a training, like on a little exploratory run that I did when I was out in America, which I think was supposed to be, I was just going out for a little 14K jog or something, and then got horribly lost. But yeah, I hadn't been running for like months at this point. So yeah, my introduction into all of this was a little bit of a baptism of fire. And after that point, actually, I told myself I was a 5 and 10K road runner because I wanted to get a good time in those, but I kept getting distracted by these amazing and brutal looking like weekend ultra trail races and everything. They just all looked really cool.
So you were
Um,
drawn to that because I guess it's the same as you
yeah,
talk about with anyway. It's because it's something that was a passion for you and that excited
yeah,
you to
yeah,
do, to take on that challenge. Um,
yeah, yeah. And I love the mountains, love the outdoors. I've sort of been doing loads of outdoorsy things since I've been really small. My parents have always taken us out to the mountains, whether it's in the summer or the winter, and so I kind of have an affinity with that. And I just started doing more and more of them, and I really did enjoy them. And then I kind of got to the point of being like, oh, maybe I should give this a go. When I was growing up with all the sport that I was doing, everything was going very well, and I'd get to a certain level, and then people would be like, oh, you need to focus all of your time in on this. And I was like, it was like women's team sports, and at that point growing up there was very little funding and everything with them, and so in my head I just went, no, academia, need to go for that, need to go for the good job, need to be able to do something to support myself. And it just made me progressively more and more sad, I think, over the time. Like at this point I was working in London, I'd got like a really well paid job, it was going really well, it was progressing really well. Was I particularly happy? Hmm. Maybe not. And so then when running started going really well, um I then thought, oh, well, if not now, when? So decided to launch into that a bit more and kind of see where it went. And then ended up finding myself up in the Lake District through a number of means, and decided that I was going to quit my job, stay up here, work out how I was going to make that happen. And then at this point, that was when started doing really quite well in some of the races around here. And you don't always have um, a very deep women's field in a lot of the races. I think, in road stuff and everything, the participation for women is growing and growing. And then some of the big trail races, like at Kielder at the weekend, there is a really good volume of representation on the women's side. In some of the more like adventurous or dangerous, well, if you were going to put it that way, trail races, sky races, that sort of thing that you've got out here, there's still less women participating in them. So there are still some like a really good level of female achievement across like the UK and across Europe with it, but the volume of those women is so small that we can't all be at every single race. So you might get some races where there's one or two sort of elite level women. Sometimes there just aren't any. So what I've found is that I've had some races up here where it's like, oh, okay, well, looking at the start list beforehand, in trail we have the ITRA and the UTMB index, which scores everyone on their race based on a number of factors, so that like when you're on the road and you can compare a 10k time to a 10k time, obviously trail is very different because you get differences in distance, elevation, underfoot terrain, all of that. The score is kind of a means of trying to be able to compare things, and gender doesn't play into what your score is. So I'll look at a start list, see the scores that are there, and then be like, oh, okay, well, I think I could come X place overall in that. And so from doing that, I've kind of ended up, I suppose, like, in a number of scenarios where I am competing against scores that happen to be men. And looking at kind of overall place rather than just in the women's race and just like where I'm coming within that. And I see value in both pieces, but I definitely see value in sort of running hard against the men when I've assessed their level beforehand and been like, oh, okay, score wise, their level with me, performance wise, within the men, they're like here, they're not here. If say I'm like, I don't know where I am within the women, but they're comparatively lower down in the men's thing than I would be in the women's, but score wise, we're sort of level. So it kind of adds an element of competition that I can have in there, and that I'm not then just sort of racing against either myself or just against the time. I've got people that I can target and pick off, because that always adds a sort of a dimension of oomph or what have you when you're going, if you can hunt someone down or if someone is chasing you, rather than just as sort of in your head or on your wrist as to what you're trying to chase. And then going into Dragon's Back, so when I did it in 23, well, I guess if you wind back even further than that, I always had it in my head that it was a race where at some point a woman could stand on top of the podium. And because Jasmine Paris came second in it, Helen Whitaker, she like paired up with Martin Stone in the first edition of it, and they won as a mixed pair. They won overall. So with all of the other elements other than just sort of the physical side of things, with all of the mental parts to it and the recovery elements as well, I think it does end up being a bit of a leveler. And I think there will be a point where there is a woman that can be on the top. And I sort of thought, well, why can't that be me? And kind of went from there with seeing if I could make that happen. Not quite, but we took it to a bit of a challenge anyway.
Next time. So just finally, go on. Sorry.
And I was just gonna say, because like obviously being the man in the room, and it's listening to all the challenges that you face doing it. So is your future as I'd like to win that event one day, or are you thinking UTMB? Where are you going with it?
So yeah, this like, and a couple of people have asked like, will I go back and do it again? And I think like maybe at some point. It's a tough one because it's something that you have to dedicate an entire year to realistically. So all of my races that I've done this year have all been ones where there's sort of an element of it that is gearing towards Dragon's Back in some way, whether it is a similarity in the length for a day or whether it's a technicality, so that I can try things out, whether it's actually sort of on the route itself. So I did 14 peaks earlier on this year, which actually goes across most of the route for day one. And so served as a really good sort of, day out and training run and everything, but then I could test like my nutrition strategy, I could test my kit, I could do all of that. So it does take an entire year out of your calendar if you're going to do that. And I think I've got other things that I'm wanting to do. So I'm trying to work out if it is something that I can refit back in and whether I would want to do that. Because next year, the race that I have in the calendar is OCC, so the 50k of the UTMB week, and kind of build up a bunch of races around that. Last year I was on the Skyrunner World Series circuit, which I really enjoyed. So even though I've done this incredibly long race, my stuff is normally sort of around like 3 hours and a bit faster. But like kind of up and straight. So I love downhill. So straight down technical stuff is really good fun. And I think I'm gonna like go back to that for a little bit and then maybe go longer again, and we'll kind of see where that goes. But it does fascinate me, and I hope that with sort of what I did and with like bringing the women's time a bit closer to the men's and everything, I hope that someone else will kind of step up and be like, oh, like I could do that, could challenge for it. I don't just need to be looking at the women. I can race the race and
Yeah, overall.
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and how does the recovery process vary? Because I mean, I guess from a regular, as you talked about, just a 50K, the recovery process, and this is spread out, but presumably less of a muscular damage each day because you're running that little bit steadier, but it's on top of each other, cumulative. So does that mean that you have to take a lot longer to recover afterwards?
Everyone is pretty broken at the end, and like for a couple of days. And you'll have some people that the swelling of their feet and their joints is just madness. Thankfully, I came out of it not too badly. So I had my race kind of ended, or the racing element of it ended partway through the fifth day. I ended up with some pain on the top of my foot, with some tenosynovitis, with the sheath just getting really inflamed and angry and feeling like it was just stabbing with every foot placement. So it wasn't terrible. A lot of people had sort of ligament tendon issues and everything, just from overuse, which you can kind of expect from the week. But yeah, I've been running. I sort of took a full week off of doing anything, which drove me completely insane.
Whole week.
I know, it was awful, especially like from running so much in the lead up to it, like really long days out, and then suddenly being like twiddling my thumbs. The first couple of days I was fine with doing nothing, but after that I felt like I was bouncing off the walls and going a bit insane. And then did some rides, and then did some indoor runs on the treadmill, and like now I've done a couple of outdoor runs and everything, and now I am sort of like chomping at the bit to get back into training. I know like some other people will take much longer out, but like I wouldn't jump back into doing a long race for a bit now.
How have you noticed yourself change through doing this from before you did it? Have you noticed yourself mentally approach life differently? Have you mentally found yourself to be more resilient? How have you noticed much of a change, or are you innately quite a mentally strong person?
I think kind of it's gone like two ways. I've definitely had like some things in my life which have made me more resilient, which I think I've then kind of taken as a real positive thing, then going it. So trying to turn things that were really negative into something that can be useful and positive. So the resilience I've gained from that then means that when I get into difficult places when I'm doing my running, I have this resilience I can pull upon. And then I think just from being able to be partially in that space, I've then probably grown more resilient with some of the runs and everything that I've done, which has then in turn happened when I like helped when I've then had some tough points in life as well. I think so. Yeah, the last sort of year and a half has not been great life-wise, and I think that's actually really helped. I think that really helped the Dragon's Back week, in that I think it was probably the deepest that I've been into like pain cave with things, but I was totally accepting of being able to compartmentalize everything that was happening as it was happening, and just be able to kind of sit with it and hold it and not kind of let it get to me too much. So I think it's kind of been, I think it's sort of both bits have helped. Both like resilience from life has helped, then the running, and then the running has then in turn helped that, and it's kind of shifted back and forth.
And what's your coping technique? Because we talk about that, everybody has their way that they handle that pain when you are in that pain cave, as you talked about. What's yours?
I really do, at the core of me, love doing this, and so I think a lot of it is like reminding myself of how great and how lucky am I that I am out here doing the stuff that I'm able to just run all day. Particularly that week, I'm like, I have a whole week where the only things that I need to worry about are running and eating and sleeping. How great is that? As much as this hurts, this is the best week ever. And I know that as soon as I finish it, I'm going to want to be back in that bubble doing it again. And I think that was really nice. But definitely the support side of things was huge. I knew it was going to be. Didn't realize quite how much it was going to be, but leaning into it a little bit and trying to give a little bit, the amount that you get back is crazy.
And I think that's a phenomenal point. Sorry, did you have another question, Tom?
I was gonna have a rounded question if you're about kind of, because I love this. It's fascinating. I find people that do ultra stuff just incredible people. I think there's so much you can learn from them, not just from the sport wise, but life. But one of the there's such a boom at the moment, it feels like, with ultra running in general, and a lot more people are doing it, and obviously you're talking about hopefully more females doing it as well. But what do you think is the future of ultra running? Do you think this is going to continue to boom and continue to grow, or what do you hope for it, I guess, is another aspect to that question.
So I think it is going to continue to grow. I think, I guess when the pandemic happened, like, a lot of people suddenly realized that there is a lot of outdoors close to home around them, and they actually
Yeah.
quite enjoy being out in the outdoors. And so I think a lot of this shift to people running ultras, or running trail in particular, I think has come from that bit of just wanting to be outdoors a little bit more. I think maybe people are starting to realize that it's quite nice, particularly when you get longer and longer with the ultras, that there is no kind of time pressure behind things. For the vast majority of people, there's no time pressure. Like, you can do a trail marathon and don't really know what a good time for it is going to be, because there's so many factors to play into it, and kind of taking that pressure away from it makes it a bit more of an enjoyable adventure for people, rather than sometimes I think when people do marathons and road races, they can get a little bit wrapped up into that whole thing of, I must do this time, and then maybe get a little bit too serious, put a little bit too much pressure on themselves. Whereas when you go on to trail, there is that added camaraderie of, you're all doing something tough, against the brute, and you can do it with each other. You don't need to sort of be in your concentrating hole of what have you, because 5 minutes here or there doesn't really make too much of a difference. Whereas 5 minutes here or there on a road marathon, you've either hit or missed your target. So I think it would be nice if more people kind of see that it is a really approachable thing. A lot of the time it is people just spending a day together outside, going from A to B, and you don't have to carry all of your food and drink with you because there's someone smiling at you at an aid station with all of this lovely stuff that you're going to eat. But yeah, so I hope it continues to grow, and just getting more people outside, getting more people away from cities into the countryside, and just getting to enjoy, particularly like getting to enjoy the UK. We've got so many great trails everywhere. We don't need to actually go abroad to go and find things. I think we've seen, a lot more people up in the lakes and everything since the pandemic. A lot more people sort of rediscovering that actually you can holiday within the UK. So maybe there's some part of it where it ends up being better for the environment. People sort of staycationing by going and doing these exploratory runs.
Run to get to the holiday.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
Or run while on holiday. And I think, you've been a brilliant guest and ambassador for that, because
you.
I mean, the Run Club is all about different kinds of running, and I feel like you've really kind of now introduced a different facet to anyone that listens to the podcast. It's not just about the road races, it's not just about the park run. The beautiful thing about running is you can be whatever you want it to be, and exploring the trails is a great way to do it. Absolutely phenomenally impressed by everything that you've achieved. Thank you so much for inspiring us and joining us, and the very best of luck in January. And please keep us updated in whatever you're moving on to target wise next.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Holly. That was awesome.
Thank you for having me.
That was brilliant from Holly. Thank you so much. Something a little bit different, but like I say, I think that's what's, for me, brilliant about this running community, is that it can go in so many different directions, from like the 6-year-old Sophia that I was running with the other week in the local park run, to Holly going on for 6-7 days and longer, and planning your own route and everything like that. So I think we're signed up, Tom, and we're going to do that challenge.
What,
Yeah,
what
I'm
you mean?
drawn to that.
The dragon race, or do you mean
No,
just?
I think we do our own. I think we do
Oh,
our
I
own.
was
We just
gonna
got to get from A to B, and we just throw the challenge out there.
Do you know? I just because I mean 380 kilometers and 16,400 meters of climb. I need a bit of prep. Get my head around that.
No, we'll do a bit of a tamer version, but I think just
Yeah.
the fun part of being able to plan your own thing and kind of that endurance challenge, and also the way she talked about the camaraderie coming together.
Yes,
Because I think
yeah.
for me, that's what I love about the marathons and the big city races now, is being a part of that community again. And the same when I was in Kielder, just loved being a part of that, just kind of running around with the group, hanging around at the start with everyone, and that friendly community. So that's, I think, what she talked about coming across really strongly as well.
No, exactly,
being
and they
together in
all.
that group.
I think they all had their own agendas and their own kind of not just coping mechanisms, but aims and objectives to come out of it. And that's where anything that brings together people that are trying to operate differently, but ultimately trying to do it together is that can't be a bad thing. I was going to ask you actually, what's the longest run you've ever done time wise?
You know what? I think it's actually when I paced in Berlin. So it'd be about 3.5 hours. I think that's the longest I've run.
Okay.
I haven't done hours and hours and hours out there. Even when I got lost and ended up doing more than I had to, I'm not sure it's been that long.
Okay. Well, it's funny, yeah, because it's funny for me. I took 2 hours 32, I think it was, to run a marathon. So I was deliberately trying to run slower. I wasn't trying to run quicker. But yeah, I which makes me think, have I ever run further than 26.2? And I don't think I have. Other than maybe I did do a long run once of 25 miles, but I did a bit of a warm up beforehand,
Yeah.
which must have been over a mile. But
Well, you
that
must warm
doesn't-
up for your races anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
would have
so
been.
that
That's
all
a
adds
couple of
up,
miles.
yeah.
I never warmed down from a marathon. Do you ever warm down?
I don't think. I think that's the aim: is you get to the finish, you're finished. You don't have to do any more. That's the whole point. That's what the ice bath's for, Tomo.
That's what. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So, but does it appeal? Because I think that there's a something in me that makes me. I don't know I don't know how I'm trying to frame this in my mind, but I'm intrigued to do something like not quite this dragon race of 6 days. I'm not quite there. I need a bit of a stepping stone.
But that's why I say the
there's something
team event and the map
Yes.
find, the orienteering type thing. That I think it's kind of like the trek I was going to do last year and then wasn't able to do because of the kids' exams
The
and timing.
Arctic.
Yeah, that kind of thing I think would be really fun because it's a crossover, isn't it? And I think Holly mentioned the fact that you're not running the whole way. You can't be for that amount of time. It's just keeping going and it's running bits of it and it's running as much as you can do and recovering well between them. But I'm quite intrigued by the map reading bit of it, maybe the orienteering side of it.
Me too.
Would be fun. As well, so yeah, I think that would be really cool. And we're going to mention, so I'm going to get on to the High Five, the High Five Honours Board, which is of course now sponsored by High Five. So basically, electrolytes to energy gels, whether it's 5k or a half marathon, whatever it is, they've got you covered. And for every shout out that we give on the Honours Board, we're giving away that product as well. So please do send in your nominations for that honours board. That number again is +44 7564 747 914. You can email them to Paula's Run Club at momentumbroadcast.co.uk. You can send them in on socials, to the WhatsApp. You can send voice messages as well. And I'm going to add on to the honours board for this week. I'm going to start out with Joe and Alice. Joe and Alice we've mentioned before, but Joe pushed Alice all the way around that marathon at Kielder with no help whatsoever. And there are switchback hills, which the term kind of describes it, switchback all the way to the top. It was tough just to run up in a half marathon. I can't imagine how hard Joe had to work to push Alice to the top of that. I really hope she rang the bell at the top. They've got this really cool bell where you run through, you bang the cowbell, and you've conquered the switchbacks. I really hope she did that. But phenomenal shout out to Joe for getting around that. And yeah, well done.
That's terrible. Intrusive thoughts. I just thought of a bell when you play golf and it's a dog leg and you have to let the players know that you can play by ringing a bell. But yeah, intrusive thoughts coming through. Got nothing to do with running. Sorry. I did see, Joe and Alice, that there was a picture that she'd hung all her gels in the back of her pushchair, which was really cool with all the different distances at what stage she was going to take, and it was like just this row of energy to get around, but just very inspiring people and just incredible people to do that. And I know, having run a bit of Kielder, I know how tough it is just to run without pushing as well.
Yes,
So
exactly.
incredible. Good Lord. I think you've got one more from Kilda before I give my one, haven't you?
Well, I was only just going to mention Sophie Rayworth as well.
Okay.
We are going to get her onto the podcast, but Sophie came up and did the half marathon because she's getting ready for an ultra in a couple of weeks, so maybe she'll come back onto the honours board when she's done the ultra. But she had a really cool way of celebrating and spending time with her eldest daughter, who is at university in Newcastle. She's doing medicine there, so she brought a couple of friends along and they all ran around the half marathon together. So that was another great part, just to share that community and hang out there and celebrate beautiful scenery together.
See, this is the thing that I love, is the fact that races and things like this give people an excuse to come together and see each other. And I think that was something Alan Story who was on one of our earlier pods, and he often goes to events and he doesn't need to ring people to check if they're going. He just knows if he goes, he's going to get to see friends and people from in that community of runners. And I think that's what I love about these events, is it's an excuse to get together, whether you're running it or not, and see people, touch base and just keep in touch, which is what this maybe I'm being a bit middle age here, is it gets harder to stay in touch with people the older you get, especially when you have kids or young kids. And that's why I love these events. You just go along, bring your family, and you just have a nice community to tap into. You don't have to ring everyone to go. You going? You just know they're going.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. So the final one for the honest board came in from Sarah, and she might be a bit surprised by this because she wrote in about a question which we will address more on the shakeout, but I really wanted to kind of highlight her on this honours board for a bit of a gift from High Five, because she's decided to change career and go down the route of being a professional personal trainer and a nutritional coach. And I think it takes a lot of bravery to pursue something, not just something new and something different, but something just to look and go, I want to do something different. And so we want to wish you luck on your journey as a personal trainer, nutrition coach, and hopefully a bit of nutrition in the post for you will add to that journey and hopefully help you in your continued journey. But thank you, Sarah, for writing in, and we will discuss a bit more about your writing and the shakeout. But yeah, best of luck, and really excited to see how you get on.
Well done, Sarah. Well done, Joe and Alice. And yeah, well done to Sophie as well. And so just remember, this honours board has been sponsored by High Five. Thank you very much for that. They are the sports nutrition company. Basically, electrolytes to energy gels, whether it's a 5K, right up to a 6-day event like Holly's just completed on the Dragon's Back. They have you covered for that. And we have that 25% discount code for you. Remember, that is Paula25 on the highfive.co.uk website, and you can go to that and check that out. That's about all we've got time for this week, Tomo. I think it's been a great chat, great inspiration to try something different. And don't forget the shakeout on Thursday, and we will see you next Monday. This has been a Momentum broadcast production, and don't forget the NordVPN offer is still running as well. So that is protection for your data and security, and of course the ability to roam and keep streaming everything that you would do as you would do at home and be secure while doing so. That is nordvpn.com/Paula's Run Club. This has been a Momentum broadcast production. Thank you very much, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.